Hello, everybody. Hello, our guest. I'm Ighrayne Amelia, a member of the VIG podcast. I'm the host of the first episode, which will be talking about podcasting. Hello, Amine.
Hi.
بليز كيما ما تقول في كاع لي زيبيزود تاعك اسكو تقدر تعرفنا بنفسك كيما انت تحب يعرفوك الناس.
Oh, okay. It's a difficult. Oh my God, I feel like this is
All about
payback.
you.
Yeah. No. So I'm Amine Rahmani.
Okay.
I'm a mechanical engineer. Also, like I'm passionate about a lot of things, especially things that gather both art and science and culture and these kind of things. So uh, I like to define myself or reintroduce myself by my hobbies. Like I think my hobbies kind of define me. So I'm a photographer. I'm into cars. I like cars because there is an aspect or an artistic aspect about cars as well as a scientific one. Same with photography. So yeah, what would you like to know about me? What is there? What else is there to say about me?
I think that tu as tout recouvert, du
Okay.
coup merci, c'était intéressant, du coup عندك شغل multidisciplinaire,
Yeah.
عندك, tu t'intéresses à beaucoup de choses en
Yes.
même temps, ce qui est super. دوكا let's go deeper in the subject. بالنسبة لك وشنو ان بودكاست؟ وانت كيفاش تديفيني ان بودكاست؟
A podcast هو émission radio. It's a radio show that is put on the internet.
Yeah.
Instead of having to catch it like on the radio, you can listen to it whenever you want and download it, and yeah. So that's what a podcast is for me.
So you have a YouTube channel called C-Culture, which stands for Science and Culture.
Yeah.
Why did you start podcasting?
Okay, why did I start? Yeah, I realized that I was lucky enough to have really interesting conversations with really interesting people, and I felt like like it was a waste for me that these conversations weren't shared with more people. So I really wanted to share the conversations that I was having with my friends, with people that I would come across, and that's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, est-ce before you were watching before podcasts ولا برك انت من لي conversations تاعك مع your friends قلت بلي it deserves to be shared with others و you start podcasting or
Yeah.
it's the only reason?
Okay, so I live like in two cities. So I live in Blida and in Algiers. Also, I used to commute to my university. So my commute was 1 hour, and then when I would go to Algiers, I would spend an hour or 2 hours on the road, and you can't really watch YouTube while driving.
Yeah, of course.
I surprised Tarek قبيلات كي قلت له باللي 2013 I was considering coming to study here. So in 2013 there was really bad 3G or internet on your mobile phone. So you had to download things in order to watch them while taking the train or taking the bus. So I would download podcasts from the podcast app and listen to podcasts. So this is why I was attracted to podcasts, because I would spend a lot of time on the road. And so I only listened to like 2 or 3 podcasts. So one of them is Star Talk Radio, which is a science vulgarization podcast. And also I would listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. So whenever they would talk about or have a scientific guest, I would listen to that podcast. These 2 podcasts kind of inspired me. I really wanted to do a science vulgarization on my podcast, but also I wanted the aspect of kind of intimacy with the guest, or not intimacy, maybe راحت لي كلمة. but like
صوتك
spontaneity. Yeah.
voilà et
Yes,
confortable et tout.
yes. I wanted to be spontaneous on my podcast. I wanted the conversations to be genuine. And really, I was having interesting conversations with interesting people, and I really wanted to share them. So I think the podcast format was the best format to share conversations as we're doing now.
Yeah, of course. Du coup انت جاتك في l'idée شغل كي تكون عندك دي conversations passionnantes عايش تخليهم غير روحك
Yeah.
تما تقدر que ça soit divertissant ou la même que ça soit genre useful other people تما you shared your stories ma guests you know même who you don't know and you record your podcast وحطيتهم.
Yes.
Okay. You certainly faced some struggles. Just what were they?
Okay, the biggest struggle I was facing was technical issues.
Of course.
So I'm not a sound engineer. I'm not very good with making videos or making like soundtracks. So there had been instances where I would have a guest and I would make them wait for like 2 hours for me to figure out how to properly record their voice. Also when with another guest, I think we ended up recording 3 times, like 3 times 1 hour and a half, to finally having like a clean episode that someone could listen to. So yeah, I'm still, even today, 50 episodes later, I'm still having technical issues. So yeah, these are the biggest challenges that I'm having. So I tried to solve this particular issue by hiring someone to help me with that, but it still wasn't enough because I couldn't hire a proper sound engineer. Other issues, the biggest issue that I have at the moment is finding a place to record wherever my guests are. So if I'm having guests in Algiers, I'm still not sure where to record with them. So sometimes I would have my guest go to Blida, where I have a studio, and record there, but not everybody wants to go to Blida. The ideal thing would be to have like a studio in every wilaya, but yeah, maybe in the future, yeah. So yeah, these are the biggest challenges I had. Yeah.
Okay. À part des problèmes causés au manque de matériel ou là et tout, est-ce que you faced other difficulties?
I guess I'm not sure I really face difficulties. Like people keep telling me that I shouldn't maybe talk about certain subjects, including politics. But even that didn't cause any issues for myself. So yeah, I don't think I had other challenges. Like everything else is fine. Yeah, sometimes I don't really have the time to record podcasts as often as I wish. Maybe this is going to change in the near future. But yeah, it's mostly technical issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
So في البداية تاعك كنت بديت وحدك.
Yes.
ومن بعد you hired someone
Okay.
to help you.
So there was someone اسمه Hisham. He helped me for like 10 or 15 or 20 episodes. So having him around was much easier for me to focus on the conversation instead of focusing on whether this microphone is working or not. But yeah, unfortunately I couldn't have him for all the episodes. Maybe he's going to come back. I don't know. Hisham. Yeah.
Only,
Think
please.
about it. Yeah, I haven't talked to him yet, but lately whenever I record a podcast, I end up recording it, deciding to record it. I end up deciding to record it at the very last minute. So Hisham doesn't really have time to come and prepare, etc. So I end up recording it alone, and today I'm still alone. So I have guests, so I'm not completely alone, but
That's great. اسكو لحقت وين تالمون كان يصاوب لك دي بروبليم شغل كرهت انا نحبس بودكاست شغل على لونغ باغ اكزومبل تجيب اون بيرسون على جال ان ايبيزود تاع ساعه زوج سوايع ابخي يو اند اب ريكوردينغ فور لايك 3 hours قلت لي بلي صارت لك ديجا وين 3 تايمز نتوما تعاودوا يو ريكورد شغل كاباب تجي شغل تولي ماشي سبونتاني باسكو عباك ديجا واش هضر واش قلت ما ثلاث مرات انت تعاود اسكو لحقت ان مومون وين تقول انت شغل بودكاست خلاص انا مشاكل هادوما جون بو بلو اسكو لحقت لهاد ان مومون ولا نو
No, never. كي نشحن على حاجة نديرها.
So it was your passion.
Yes. I'm not sure I can call it my passion. شو كان زعما نكومباريها مع other things.
Ranking habit.
Ranking habit in terms of passion. I really love having conversations with interesting people. However, كي ديسيديت بلي حندير بودكاست يصرا واش يصرا ندير بودكاست like I don't care what kind of difficulties or challenges I would face. I end up doing it and I end up making it happen. So yeah, I decided to do a podcast like 2 years before I started, and I was procrastinating until I started, and when I started it was like class. Even though I had technical issues, I would work on them and fix them, even though sometimes I would work like 6, 10, 15 hours on one episode. غير باش نسقمو so much it was bad. كشغل دقيقة مش دقيقة 10 secondes 10 secondes وفي زوج سوايع. So yeah, it's more of شحنة وسماطة وراس خشين rather than being passionate about something.
So you have 57 episodes, not 50.
Okay, 57.
57.
You're counting.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
How do you select the subject? يعني اسكو انت دير لي سوجي اللي تحب انت تهضر عليهم ولا شغل تركب الموجة تشوف what's trendy too ولا you ask your community on Instagram اسكو حابين تهضر تغبط هاد السوجي ولا هاد السوجي so how?
So it's basically sometimes I would have a guest اللي راهو صار له حاجة في حياته ولا شغل على بالي بلي they are interested in certain topics. So على بالي in advance بلي okay this guy I'm gonna talk to him about this and this and that. And شغل كي نجيبو نقصر معه على this and this and that بصح I never stop myself from having from letting the conversation go elsewhere. So yeah, otherwise a lot of the times I just call people and then start having conversation. I never plan. I never really I do sometimes write down questions. شو كنكون خايف نشوف I had an experience with one guest. I'm not gonna say who it was, but like I prepared 10 questions for him, and sometimes like two 3 questions is enough to get me through like 2 hours. But with this guy, I had 10 questions, and he answered all 10 questions in like 5 minutes. And then I was like, what else am I gonna yes, what else am I gonna talk about? So I started like نتفلسف ونهضر على حاجات ما عندهمش علاقة معاه. But yeah, it was his fault. It wasn't my fault. He wasn't very talkative. But all the other guests were very talkative. All of them were very curious. So if I don't have a question for them, sometimes they have a question for me. So yeah.
So le principe تاعك c'est de mener une conversation هكا من جزء fluide, spontané et
كيما في
tout.
القهوة. كي تروح باش تقهوى مع صاحبك ولا معك شي واحد ماشي تبدا تقول بون فوالا لي سوجي اللي انا نهضر عليهم وفوالا هذه اي جينيرالمون هادوما لي كونفرساسيون تاع قهاوي هما اللي فريمون يكونوا يلحقونا النتائج ويخلونا شغل نفيقوا ونخموا في حاجات.
Yes, parce que نقصر على anything which cross our mind. Yeah. So في شت des épisodes من البودكاست تاعك عندك شغل ما في un seul épisode vous abordez plusieurs sujets شغل تحكموش un seul thème. علاش خيرت جوستومون شغل ان بودكاست كلاسيك ولا تراديسيونال وين شغل هي تكون ستوري تيلينغ وماشي ديبيتس علاش ما نديروش دي ديبا وين زعما تجيب تو جيست ولا ميم نتا شغل عندك اون فيزيون دي شوز ولوتر بيرسون عندها اون فيزيون دي شوز اوبوزي بيان سور يديروا ان ديبا شغل علاش دائما ندير شغل الفورمات تاع ستوري تيلينغ.
So even through هادوما spontaneous conversations, a lot of the time شوف بزاف خطرات نسيب روحي باللي I end up having debates. Sometimes نكون على بالي بلي there is going to be a debate, sometimes ما على باليش. Like for example this episode مع رامي زموشي we had like an argument about what the term elite means in society and whether the elite should even exist in our society. Should we consider some people as the elite or not, and how, if yes, how should we, like, what defines someone as part of the elite? Is it his status? Is it where he studied? Is it whether he had الباك ولا لا? Is it I don't know, something else? So I was very much against the idea of having an elite in our country, and he thought it was something that is completely natural, and he thought it was something that is defined by your educational background, and we had a debate about this, and so even though we didn't plan it, but the debate was very much there. So yeah.
What's your most and least favorite episode? And why, if you can?
I absolutely can't give like I can't really give a favorite episode. على خاطرش well, a lot of my guests are my friends. يجوا لي يقولوا لي علاش ماشي أنا But yeah, I have favorite guests, and suddenly my favorite guests are my closest friends. So we have Ziri Abbas, we have Sami Bousebha, we have Rania Bancroft, there's Friel Zikri, Malak. Those I think are my favorite guests. I like to have them again and again. So yeah, I don't really have one favorite episode. So the episodes نعاود نسمعهم كي نكون نخدم فيهم. بصح I don't really listen to them after I post them ولا كاش حاجة. So I don't really I have one favorite episode. However, I have ماشي one, بصح I have a few that are some of my favorite conversations that I had. And the conversations start قبل البودكاست, and they go through the podcast, and they end after the podcast. مولي نقول لهم باي باي. So yeah, the experience that podcasting that I have isn't the same as the experience that listener would have. Listener عنده ساعة ونص, أنا عندي a whole day. So كنت لاقى بهم نروح نفطروا, بعد ما الفطور نروح نحطوا دوزان, وبعد ما نحطوا دوزان نديروا podcast. So yeah. Did this answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have two favorite episodes. One was with your friend Ihab about gigs.
Oh yes.
I like that episode parce que parce que vous avez abordé le sujet من جهتكم نتوما وانت من جهة la société, ce qui est super. ماشي la vision تاعكم برك, même la vision تاع la société algérienne. وعجبني تانيك your episode مع رانيا بنكروفت على language.
Yeah.
Importance.
I don't remember. Yeah, okay.
Importance to language.
Right. Yeah,
yes.
I think I remember. I don't know. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I'm glad you listen to those. I thought when I started doing the podcast, I thought only 10 people would listen to some of the episode, but I end up having 200, and then sometimes 500, sometimes 1,000, 2,000 listeners, and I'm like, wow, it's incredible. So yeah.
Moi, personnellement, je suis pas une adepte à le podcast algérien.
Okay.
So le seul podcast algérien اللي سمعته c'était تاعك et it was like it's good.
Okay, good.
Et كان عندي bon je pense كما قال العباد عندهم داك بريجوي تاع بودكاست تاع الخارج شغل سي ميو اي تو شغل سبوتيفاي اي تو دوكو شغل بوغ ان بودكاست الجيريان اللي شفتو تاعك عجبني بون جو سي با اذا لي زوتر يعجبوني مي ان توكا تاعك عجبني دوكو كابابل نتفتح ونولي ندورها بودكاست الجيريان.
Hopefully this is the good thing I think about at least les podcasteurs algériens. I think it is the case for me. which is les concurrents تاوعي ce sont pas forcément الناس اللي عايشين في الجزائر. Les concurrents تاوعي c'est des podcasts américains, français, ما على باليش. Et أنا I have to do better content than say ما على باليش أنا Joe Rogan. Even though Joe Rogan يجيب واحد super famous, so ما كيش كيف نفوتو. بصح how can I beat Joe Rogan in the head of the Algerian guy اللي فتحوا صاب episode تاع Joe Rogan من الفوق و episode تاعي من تحت. Like how can the guy هذاك يكليك على Amine Rahmani rather than Joe Rogan. So that's the win for me. لو كان on compare ça مع par exemple la télé algérienne ou la radio algérienne كاين غير la chaîne 3 البهجة et مش عارفه non so عندهم عندك 3 chaînes تسمع لهم.
Il y a pas vraiment le choix quoi.
T'as pas le choix donc même si يديروا un contenu médiocre راك تسمع لهم بالصفه عليك sinon طفي لا هذا واش كاين. انا لا انا je dois être mieux que des podcasteurs internationaux donc this is something I'm very proud of.
Ok, qui on a abordé le sujet وش هو رايك على le podcasting in Algeria?
Oh, I think that
spicy question.
Okay, there are episodes that I listen to ماشي تاوعي كاين des episodes تاع des podcasts algériens اللي سمعتهم اللي قلت واو لو كان غير كاش نهار نقدر I record a podcast that is as interesting as this one and I don't think I ever did. So I'm gonna give examples. So there's this episode تاع podcastique مع The Art Nerd I think اسمه ريان. And they talked about art. They went through the introduction and what is art in general. And كي تبدأ تسمع الابيزود بالك تكون عندك aucune idée على l'art. وكي تكمل الابيزود you become like somewhat of not a connoisseur but
عندك ثقافة
اللي عندك ثقافة على l'art وشنو هو وعلاش وشنو هو هاد لا بينتور اللي تشوف فيها. So I think that's a very very cool episode. There are episodes تاع رانيا بنكرافت اللي سمعت لهم and I thought they were really really interesting. I hope Rania Bancroft gets back into podcasting. But yeah, they were really interesting. شغل هضروا على تاريخ تاع الجزائر ولا هضروا على aspects تاع society تاعنا اللي انا مش ميم با عارفهم يكزيستيو and these are aspects اللي اثروا على بزاف ناس. So I hope so there are really really good podcasts في الجزائر. كاين other podcasts اللي that I could mention. كاين one podcast اللي نسيت اسم البودكاست ونسيت اسم البودكاسترز. دايوغ كنت نحوس عليها وما صبتوش. But yeah, it's not the same format. She's from Wahran. She does 5 minutes per podcast, per episode, and she talks about one subject. And it's really, really interesting. كاين تخميمة, am I forgetting other podcasts? Yeah, there are a few podcasts that are interesting. I think the most interesting ones are Sid Kastik and Rania Bancroft. So yeah.
Okay. اسكو بالنسبه لك لا هايب انتور البودكاست في الجزائر كاين ولا مازال ما عرفولوش ولا اسكو البودكاست عنده هايب في الجزائر اسكو يمشي
مازال I hope يعني عندي a hope اللي دوك الثقافه تاع البودكاست دوك تطلع وتافونسي دو فاسون اكسبونونسيال بصح مازالنا فريمون في البدايه تاعها شغل مازال الناس كي ديكوفريو البودكاست تاعي يقولوا لي لا بروميير فوا سمعت بودكاست which is cool. But if we compare this to, for example, the United States, everybody listens to podcasts, like everybody. So no, ما عندناش hype تاع podcast. مازال ما لحقناش لهذاك الشيء. I think it's the same way ما عندناش hype تاع Twitter. I don't know exactly وش هي العفسة تاع Twitter اللي ما خلاتوش vraiment يقلع في الجزائر. But I hope ما تصالوش كيما تويتر. بس تويتر عنده 15 سنة ملاو في الجزائر وما افونساش vraiment. So it's kind of مش حاب جو دي دي بيتيس بصح it's a kind of intellectual format شغل اللي يخليك تخمم مليح اللي تخليك شغل تعصر شويه مخك. Most Algerians aren't really into يعصروا مخهم so they just into getting their papers يروحوا يخدموا خدمتهم and relax. So شغل تفتح دي كيسيون اكزيستونسيال في ان ايبيزود تاع زوج سوايع ونص. I'm not sure this is very attractive for the average Algerian guys or girls. So I hope it's going to be the case in the future.
Ok, je suis du même avis. Je pense pas que le podcast عنده hype كبيرة. شغل beaucoup plus ce sont les étudiants I guess بلي يسمعوا البودكاست و surtout ils se basent شغل على les réseaux sociaux مش على اليوتيوب شغل من les réseaux sociaux يروحوا لليوتيوب باش يشوفوا البودكاست. Est-ce que your opinion was based on شغل انت اناليزيت لا كوميونيتي تاعك ولا لا سوسيتي راك عايش فيها ولا it was based on insights شغل على حساب لي فيو اي تو وين قلت باللي sûrement les Algériens ça les intéresse pas tant que ça.
It's based on both. It's based on insight كي نشوف les catégories. For example, my podcast فيه over 60% female and over 60% les étudiants female تانيت. So probably most of them are students. People who text me about my podcast, almost all of them are students. Almost, I said ماشي all of them. What else? So yes, and my experience by living in Algeria شغل عمري ولا شفت واحد très très rare وين نشوف واحد حاكم تليفون وداير بودكاست ويسمع فيه. It's rare. But hopefully شغل بالك راني في موجة اللي راح تكبر وأنا من الأولين اللي دخلت فيها tu vois. Who knows? But since everybody دوكا عنده a phone, so maybe in the future more people are going to listen to podcasts there.
Yes, I really invite people when يولوا surtout les étudiants when يولوا يسمعوا ويشوفوا un podcast parce que capable هما تكون عندهم une vision على un sujet particulier وين capable كيسمع هذاك البودكاست que ça soit يثقف روحه soit il peut prendre un autre camp par exemple زعما يكون واحد زعما contre ال AI for some reason après يسمع بودكاست يولي يقول لك he got a point شغل يدورها يولي يقول لك تما he's right ويبدل رايه على هذاك السبجكت تما j'inviterai vraiment les personnes s'intéressent au podcast ما يديروش غلطتي guys وينسمعوا غير تاع les étrangers parce que كاين des Algériens they have a very good content وتاني qui sont des Algériens كانوا des étudiants كيما حنايا du coup ça serait bien وين نشجعوا même هادو creators of content شغل même هما كيشوفوا باللي كاين hype autour البودكاست وكاين عباد راهم شغل s'intéressent le fait que تشوف عباد s'intéressent à ce chaque دير تجيك هذيك لا ديتيرميناسيون encore plus وين tu te donnes plus à fond وين تحوس تكسر راسك parce que je pense que عندك puisque عندك 57 épisodes شغل c'était pas fameux شغل تصيب sujet وتصيب guest شغل ça demande du temps ça demande des efforts et tout. How do you attract your audience?
How do I attract my audience? I don't really think too hard about attracting my audience. I just put content out there شو نحطه في يوتيوب and إذا سمعوه إذا ما سمعوهش usually it's not I don't really get paid by views ولا كاش حاجة شغل ما عنديش هذاك لو ستريس تاع اوكي اسكو هاد ليبيزود اللي خسرت عليه طون دارجون اسكو حيجيب لي طون دارجون. I really don't have this kind of approach. Instead, I put a podcast, I take bits of it, des montages صغار منه de 5 minutes لا 3 minutes ولا I put them on my personal Instagram account ونخليهم. If it's shared, معناتها it's interesting and good for the episode and good for the listeners. If it's not shared, so that means that people don't really find it interesting and it's not a big deal. So I don't really push people to listen to my podcast. إذا نخلي the thing I like it to be organic and natural.
تسمى بور تو كيما جاتك لا انت دير اللي عليك ريكورد يور بودكاست تحطو ابخي سمعوا ما سمعوش their loss.
It's not necessarily their loss. Maybe the podcast is really not that interesting. Maybe the episode is not that interesting. And some episodes داروا 300 vues while others داروا 1000 ou 1500. So I don't know what that means.
كاين ميم ايبيزود فيه 3K
كاين كتر كاين 5K. So what does it mean? I don't know.
تما لي فيو ما مش اوموجين شغل شاك ايبيزود كيفاش كان شغل really هابط واحد very high.
And sometimes نجيب like un créateur de contenu who has a following etc. and ما عندوش بزاف لي فيو. And sometimes نجيب عبد ولا عبده اللي ما عندهم حتى علاقه مع لي ريزو سوسيو. They never put any content out there. and the episode وحده يلحق 1000 ويلحق 2000 شغل بلا ما نفيق ولا بلا ما sans aucun effort. So yeah.
تسمى ça c'est vraiment un truc personnel وين العباد هما اسكو يروحوا لهذاك ليبيزود ولا لا وتانيك ça dépend subject كان ils sont beaucoup plus culture كان ils sont beaucoup plus art كان ils sont au contraire كيما الgeeks science so it really depends on the people. Do you think that your podcast is successful and why?
It's more successful than what I thought it would be at first. But I hope, I have I have hopes for it to be way more successful than this in a few years. معناتها je l'imagine bien من على 5 ولا 10 سنين يولي une référence في le podcasting national et international. And when I say référence معناتها كي تصرى حاجة الناس يروحوا البودكاست تاعي باش يشوفوا what the guests have to say about that thing. And yeah, I think it's good enough for now. قبل ما نبدأ I didn't really imagine the adventure would be as good as this. I didn't imagine your club VIC ينفيتوني parce que je suis podcaster. So that's cool. I think it's successful enough. بصح quand on la compare مع the rest of the world, it's not nearly as successful as it should be. So yeah.
يعني هي كي نجي نكومباري your podcast على la communauté algérienne, je pense que it's a successful podcast parce que كاين quand même listeners et tout et même على le contenu شغل vis-à-vis contenu تاعك ولا à l'international شغل y a pas vraiment de différence. Bon خلينا من هذوك لي بودكاستر شغل يجيبوا لك ايلون ماسك ولا شغل it's not doable for now. بصح I guess كون يجوزوا هكا شويه عوام هكا سورتو لي جينيراسيون اللي هم جايين شغل ils sont plus into these kind of things. Du coup capable كي تكون تطلع هذيك لا هايب تاع البودكاست وين les autres personnes صح ils intéressent le podcast puisque انت عندك quand même 2 ans تاعك دير في les épisodes normalement 2 ans.
Yeah.
Voilà, 2 ans. Du coup, capable عباد كي يجوا يشوفوا les podcasts ou sur les podcasts déjà qui existaient, ils vont s'intéresser.
Yeah.
Est-ce que حتكمل podcasting ولا tu crois qu'il un moment يتقول I did كاع واش نقدر ونحبس لهنايا ولا تكمل شغل même un certain âge شغل dépasser la trentaine وتكمل؟
No. I'm gonna continue forever. I don't think I'm ever gonna stop podcasting. This is why I think at some point it is going to be successful. So إذا نحن نديرها pendant 20-30 سنة in the future. I think at some point it's gonna get into the international map, some way or another. Yeah.
تما la continuité تما انت tu vises la continuité وين هذيك la continuité et elle va permettre une تزيد تكتسب audience de plus en plus
and بهذيك la continuité maybe someday there's one episode اللي يجيب بزاف. See what I mean? Yeah. So نسبة نجبد على Joe Rogan podcast because it's one of the few podcasts I listen to. وتاني it's kind of a reference for me. So I think واحد النهار the 20th episode ولا it was technically good. The 20th episode, I think 20th or something, 23rd or 22nd. But anyway, it was technically good and I thought okay, Joe Rogan راهو في 1700 episode. حبيت نعرف في le 20th episode تاعو technically how does it compare to mine. So first of all he was using a webcam ويقصر مع أصحابه. So it was like really bad in terms of technicality. But also even today مازال عنده غير 800 vues في هذاك الابيزود 20. So like this is podcasting. هو بداها تاني في 2010 وين حتى واحد ما كان يسمع لي بودكاست. ودوكا 10 ans plus tard ولا 15 ans plus tard look where he is. So I thought okay إذا في ال 20th episode تاعي عندي أكثر من 1000 vues أكثر منه هو then okay maybe at my 1000th episode I'm gonna have more views etc.
Ok, تسمى en quelque sorte tu te projettes en lui تسمى شغل هو كي صرات له هكاك à peu près تقدر تصالك la même chose.
En quelque sorte وتاني je me compare شغل عندي a reference اللي هو his podcast قال like where is he how am I شغل in terms of وكنقلعنا كيف وين أنا لاحقين etc. So yeah.
Est-ce que ça لك difficulties مع guest qui جبتو؟
One guest برك the difficulty was that قلت لك I asked him 10 questions كملهم في 5 minutes and then I didn't know what to talk about with him. So yeah, it was only once. I don't remember having a bad experience with a guest. I really don't. If I had, then I don't remember it. But I get to select my guests myself. So no surprise, ما عنديش bad experiences.
Okay.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to begin podcasting, what are your tips and errors to avoid?
I think what people should do is use whatever material عندهم and just start. Just تبداو and go ahead and try to do your best. Do not give up إذا كان غير 5 عيبات تسمعوه. Keep going ما تكرهوش. And these are the two keys, I guess. It doesn't matter إذا ما عندكش ميكرو ولا عندك sound card ولا. Your phone is enough. ما عندكش a phone, I don't know, borrow a phone and record an episode for 1 hour ولا half an hour ولا 5 minutes whatever. And the other thing is ما تكرهش. Like even though the first few episodes ما بالك ماشي ملاح ولا ما داروش بزاف لي فيو ولا كاش حاجة, who cares? Just keep going. And do it for yourself. Do it for your personal satisfaction, not to please people.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Du coup انت تنصحهم يتبعوا لا ديتيرميناسيون تاعك وين لازم يكملوا دار بودكاست ويديروا avec les moyens du bord après petit à petit يديروا شغل ان بروغري que ce soit في الماتيريال ولا في الكونتوني ولا يقدروا يعرضوا guests. Is there errors to avoid ولا
yeah, just not to give up and not to try to please people with your podcast. ان شاء الله ما تقعدش تتبع واش الناس يقولوا لك باسكو كان زعما الناس تبدا تسمعهم يقول لك اوكي دير فيديو كونتنت في 30 seconds و سي بون. No, not necessarily. So yeah, like start. كاين many people يقولوا بلي انا حابين نديروا بودكاست ويقعدوا عامين وما يديروا والو. علاش؟ because ما عندهمش ماتيريال, because ما عندهمش l'espace or whatever. No, just start with whatever you have. This is the biggest mistake I think people make. So yeah, that's it.
for you it's personal satisfaction before everything.
Yes, as it should be with almost anything in life, I guess. Imagine, is there anything that you do you think more about satisfying other people اللي ما تعرفهمش than about satisfying yourself. So مانيش عارف إذا قريت قراية سي با باش الناس يفرحوا بيك, سي باش تفرح بروحك. إذا مانيش عارف إذا كليت ماكلة سي باش انت تعجبك, ماشي باش العباد يشوفوك تاكل ماكلة وما يعجبهم. So that's how it should be with anything including podcasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
وش رايك في البودكاست تاع اليوم وين tu me connais pas personnellement, انا ما نعرفكش personnellement, حنا ان جروب ديتوديون اللي تابعين ان كلوب, جبناك دير بودكاست معنا en tant que guest مش انت راك تهوستي.
I really enjoyed this. نعجبني بزاف الحال. Parce que
my pleasure.
Yes, parce que je pense que les questions étaient vraiment pertinentes et je pense que le podcast d'ailleurs peut avoir de l'avenir. Le cas زعما تكملوه وتطبعوه, vous investissez fait, je pense qu'il peut devenir une référence dans le futur très proche. Donc ce que j'aimerais vraiment que ce soit pas le dernier épisode.
Non, c'est le premier.
Ouais, c'est le premier, j'espère que ce sera pas le dernier. Tanit, j'espère que ce sera un podcast qui va continuer longtemps dans l'avenir. Donc même when you graduate, you leave all the people behind you and they're gonna continue this podcast. So I really hope the best for you guys as students and for this podcast and for the club.
Yes, thank you. It's actually our second edition.
Okay.
تما كانت كاينه اون ايكيب ديجا قبلنا تخدم, هي شاك فوا تتبدل ليكيب, بي ام جديد, بروجيكت مانجر جديد, اند او تي جديد اي تو. دوكو ان شاء الله il y aura une continuité وين كل عام يرى une nouvelle équipe تخدم على البروجي, شغل نخلوه
cool.
دوكو كل واحد يرفد المشعل ويكمل البودكاست. دوكو ان شاء الله البودكاست تاع الكلوب تاعنا يوغا توجور اون كونتينيتي ما يحبش دوكو سا فا با ديبوندر دو نو ما حنا كون نروحو باسكو وي وونت ستاي هير فور ايفر كابابل دي مارش اي تو ما نقدروش نعرفو تما كاين لا ريليف. Yes, anything you want to add, talk about, or you're free to say everything.
If there is anyone who's listening to this ولو حابب يبدا podcast, I think they should لا عبالي بلي كاين challenges or whatnot بصح they really should start it as soon as possible. Personally, my life has changed for the better thanks to this to this podcast. Like I met really interesting people. Otherwise I wouldn't have met them. I made friendships. Otherwise I wouldn't have made them. I had job opportunities. Otherwise I wouldn't have had them. I had them thanks to the podcast. What else? I learned about the world, and I learned about Algeria, and I learned about many things thanks to this podcast. So I think it changed my life to the better, and it brought a lot of positivity to my personal life. So people who are thinking about starting a podcast should really do it. So yeah, that's what I have to add.
Okay, دوكو podcast brought to you شغل مشي material benefits بصح جابت لك هذيك تاع فتحوا لك بواب tu pensais pas كش نهار يتفتحوا دوكو على بها راك تنكوراجي في العباد باسكو l'expérience انت عرفتها capable même les autres ils vont avoir la même expérience دوكو du moins ان شاء الله yes. And اسكو كانوا كاينين دي guests first time تهضر معاهم تجيبهم après موراها ولا شغل صحابك littéralement على جال une conversation?
Almost all of them. So I had many guests اللي well ماشي بديت نهضر معاهم في الابيزود كيما انا وياك هكذا بصح باسكو كان عندي البروسيس هذاك تاع لازم نروح ليهم نرفدهم ونجيبهم ونعاود نرجعهم. So I had guests اللي تلاقيت بهم pour la première fois في النهار اللي درنا فيه البودكاست. Good example would be الخنسة تلاقيت بها هذاك النهار 3 ساعات رحت لفتها ورحنا درنا البودكاست and after that we became really good friends. So almost close friends. I'm not gonna say close friends but like almost close friends. And almost all the guests that I had اللي عندهم انستغرام مون ليبيزود يخرج لي ديك العرسه الخضراء هذيك تاع لي ستوري تاعهم which means I became a good friend of theirs. So it really having an experience تاع podcasting really improves the relationship of or the friendship between the two people.
Okay. اسكو كي وليت بودكاستر تبدلوا معك صحابك ولا اسكو كي وليت بودكاستر شغل ماشي بوزيسيون تاعك كسوسيتي بصح شغل لونتوراج تاعك كو سوا لا فامي ولا ميم لي زامي ولا عباد تعرفهم اسكو شغل ولا يشوفوك دون نوتر فاسون شغل ولا يشوفوك شغل كايند اوف فيموس ولا شغل اون بيرسوناليتي بوبليك.
I don't think so. Sometimes يتمسخروا بيا ويقولوا لي باللي وليت هكذا بصح no I don't think so. I think they discovered the nerd / geeky personality تاعي through the podcasts. Like I had many family members اللي شغل صحة بصح يشوفوا podcast they just go this is Amine. So yeah, this is like the biggest difference. But people who knew me well, I don't think they had another perspective that they changed towards me.
اسكو صحابك انت تبروبوزي لهم ولا هما يبروبوزي لوحدهم يكونوا guest معك؟
انا نبروبوزي لهم usually. Sometimes someone would tell me, hey, I'd like to be on the podcast, and if I want that, I'd promote that idea and be like, yes, let's do it someday, etc. If I don't want that, I'd be like, what do you want to talk about? So yeah, usually it's me who suggests it.
تما انت
انا اللي ندير لو با.
فوالا. اسكو انت دائما تسون كونفورتابل مع الجيست تاعك ولا سا ديبون اذا it's a friend or not ولا
again one person bark I didn't feel comfortable. one guest bark I didn't feel comfortable. Like they came and they were a bit rude to one of my friends which made me شوية mad at them and we were gonna do a podcast. So deja at the start it wasn't cool, and I wasn't really comfortable, and they were a bit weird in like the fact that شغل جاوا وقعدوا ساكتين قبل البودكاست. But I was like okay, so I hope يبدا يحضر في البودكاست. بدا في البودكاست ما بداش يحضر ولا ما بداتش تحضر. I'm not gonna say who that is, but yeah, I think I had only one experience where I wasn't really comfortable with the guest. Yeah.
Nice. معليش مرة في 57
مرة في
episode
57 yes.
So
2%.
second set صعبة.
Yeah, 2% of the time.
Yes. وش رأيك درنا هاد الابيزود in one shot؟
You didn't think it's gonna be in one shot? No, I think it went smooth. I think it's worth listening to, and I personally enjoyed my time here. So
أنا as a first experience راني مع بودكاست so واحد موالف مش كما أنا first episode وشغل I never did this مام شغل في ريزو سوسيو فيديو ولا ما نحبش نهضر so I pushed myself. It was a great experience. Je pense même كون نعاود ندير host مع une autre personne je serais confortable parce que déjà عندي une bonne première expérience وين شغل je me sens à l'aise مع la personne du coup.
Cool.
Yes.
As this is the first time is the most difficult one. بعد خلاص.
نص I mean après parce que شغل il suffit هذاك le premier pas شغل كيما un bébé après تولي تقدر تمشي.
Yes.
Du coup شغل it was very helpful و
Yes.
يعني j'avoue que podcasteur c'est une bonne expérience. وقيل عجبني الحال ندورها وحدي. Guys نخليكم ندورها سولو انا ولا نولي مع امين نديرو ديو نخليكم.
ما عجبوش الحال طارق.
Sorry PM أنا نروح. عجبني الحال سي بون.
Yeah, you could do it on yourself on your own. يعني جماعة ما سمعتونيش قلتها هذه.
ما تفضحناش they don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is so I think it's a cool experience for myself too. So I haven't come to l'école polytechnique since 2013 I think 2012. So
صدات.
Yeah, ça date. To me, ça date pas tellement. Oh, ça fait 10 ans. Mais quand même. So yeah, this is a good experience for me, and it's nice to meet you guys as students, as engineering students, and yeah, it was a cool conversation.
Okay. وش تحب تكون guest ولا تكون host؟
Definitely guest. بس ما نحبش نهضر بزاف على روحي. When you're a guest, you don't have the pressure هذيك تاع you have tu dois animer ou tu dois هكذا etc. But at the same time, I don't like to when I'm a guest. Usually when I'm a guest, I only talk about myself. Like people يسقسوني أنت Amine what was your experience? And لو كان زعما تسمع البودكاست تاعي مع سيد كاستيك عند سيد كاستيك هضرت على روحي بعد مع رانيا بنكرافت 60% of it is about the same. But when I'm the guest and I give my opinion about certain subjects, etc. Like today, كهضرنا على elitism. I think it was cool. I prefer that aspect. وكي نكون أنايا the host, عندك شوية a burden. This podcast needs to go well, and technicalities لازم أنا نفيريفيهم. Like the fact that جيت اليوم وماشي انا لازم نفيريفي لي ميكرو ماشي انا لازم نحط تليفون ندير هذيك لي كاميرا etc. I think it's yeah I enjoy it more هكايا
باسكو نقص تانيك تعب وما ما عندكش هذيك لا بريسيون وانت لازم تانيمي الحاله باسكو ليبيزود تاعك شغل لا ريسبونسابيلتي هي تاعك. So great. Our episode comes to its end. Thank you for listening and viewing our episode, and thank you Amine for coming. It was really a pleasure, and maybe we'll invite you as a guest one more time if you want to.
No problem. Yeah, with pleasure.
Thank you. So anything to add?
No, at the moment not much. صحة أفطركم. Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.